Okay, so yeah, so like I mentioned, today's session will run a little different where, we're going to be recording the entire session, including the open Q&A. I will leave time in the end for questions, and I invite you to try to ask questions that you think other grievers will also benefit from hearing about, because I think you should have all received the email with the recording from yesterday. So this recording will also be going out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So, house rules, just for the ones who weren't here yesterday. Okay, there you go. So you are welcome here, exactly as you are, whether you want your camera on, your camera off, that's fine. We're joining live right now, thank you, or watching it from the replay, entirely up to you. Participation is encouraged, so like I said, you can type things in the chat, but if you just want to listen, that's also fine. So everything that I offer and everything that I ask is an invitation only. So you can listen, reflect, and just move at your own pace. Okay, so for the ones who weren't here yesterday, hello, my name is Ellen Bayar, and I'm a widow and a certified coach. And what I do is I teach those who have experienced profound loss how to, rebuild and, rebuild a life that, is full of purpose and meaning, and pretty much is building a life that you're excited about while bringing your loved ones with you, while bringing, honoring your grief. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. And if you're back from yesterday, welcome back. And I always like to start these things by saying, I am very sorry that you have to be joining us, but I'm very honored that you're here today. Okay, so just a recap for yesterday. Yesterday we dived a little bit into what grief does and what happens to you because of that grief. So we talked about what it's like to feel unsure, where or how to begin. Hopefully, I helped you get a little less stuck or feel a little less stuck and help you understand that everyone has their own timeline in grief. Um, we also learned how to allow ourselves a reset by destroying some preconceived notions about grief. So, like the five stages, they're not linear. So they're not really stages, but more phases. And then we also identified yesterday that some support options, that you should have received some links in your email too, and learned that it's important to give yourself grace and kindness as you navigate this difficult time. So, if for the ones that were here yesterday, if you've been able to watch the recording, if you don't mind just putting in the chat, like how are you feeling a day after day one? I'm just curious if anyone would like to share. And then while we're waiting, if anyone would like to share, yeah, so yesterday was step zero. It wasn't even step one because I understand that the pain might feel like you're starting much, much farther behind, right? So hopefully, with all the work that we did yesterday, we were able to kind of level set and meet each other at the same level, which is just zero. Hopefully, we now have the knowledge that we're now in control of what we do from this point on. So for today, what we're going to be doing is learning the gift of rediscovery. Like figuring out who you're going to be now, what you want to bring forward with you. Mindfulness, so being able to, also feel gratitude with the grief. I know it's a little hard maybe sometimes to imagine it, but I promise you that, once you work on this and you reframe the way you think about grief, is that eventually you can come to a point where the grief also reminds you more of the love versus the pain. And I'll also teach you maybe how to look for glimmers of hope, improving your relationship with grief, and then how to turn that first page into your next chapter if that is something that you want to do. So through mindset shifting and reframing, we're going to bring into light some of the challenges that come with starting over. Oh, I'm going to pause right there. So Russ, oh, thank you. You felt like it was valuable moving forward rather than moving on. Yes, we are not moving on. Good to connect. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Daphne, for honoring us and making us this your first workshop. Thank you so much. Um, so through mindset shifting and reframing, we're gonna bring that grief to light, and then we're gonna bring up the challenges of starting over. And by the end of our time together today, I hope that you walk away, hopefully with a renewed sense of hope, and maybe even giving yourself the permission and allowing yourself to rebuild. Okay. So, first, guilt and fear. So before we take that first step, let's talk about guilt. So if you just want to use your thumbs up reaction or any reaction again, who here feels a lot of guilt or fear when you think about making that first step? Seeing some thumbs up. Yeah, so write in the chat if you want, like what your fears are about starting the next chapter. And if it helps, like for me, what I felt was, I was somehow leaving them behind, if that's something that you also feel, or you feel guilty about them not being here to share whatever this new future looks like. Also something that I've heard from other widows. Soul decision, yeah, especially if you've been, making decisions together with someone for so long, it's very hard when their voice isn't there anymore. Guilt is what is holding you back. Yeah, so we're gonna cover that. Okay, so don't worry. So yeah, so if it feels like, somehow you're leaving them behind, like I remember early on in my healing journey, I kept feeling guilty about moving forward. Birthdays, milestones, anniversaries, everything felt like I was leaving him farther and farther behind. I hated celebrating birthdays because I'm like, I'm turning this age and this age, but they're forever frozen at that age. So like my late husband, Ira, it was his birthday a couple of days ago and he would have been 40. So like that brought me a lot of sadness, not because I want him back, because I know that can't happen, but it was just more of like thinking, just wondering like what could have been, right? What could have been if he was still here? So that is natural, okay? Um, Being isolated from social groups that you would attend as a couple, yes, that does happen, unfortunately. But we can cover that later. If you don't mind, Russ, like asking that question at the end of our session, we'll cover that later. So it's natural to feel guilty when that's your understanding of the situation, is that anything that you do moving forward is leaving them behind. Guilt and fear are usually one of those things that I first address and dive into deeper, like when I do one-on-one coaching with my clients. Um, and, this is because unless those two are really addressed and reality tested, like we really break it down, like why you're thinking that way, it really is much more difficult to envision yourself stepping into the future because again that part is really just like holding you back, right? The thing is it's impossible to leave them behind because what we established yesterday is when something becomes part of your DNA, of like the very fiber of your being, you have no choice but to carry it with you. The people that we love are always going to be part of us, right? We don't ever forget them. There is a belief in some cultures that when you love someone, when you offer your love to someone and they offer their love back to you, there is a soul exchange. There is part of your soul that, is exchanged with a part of their soul. So you get part of them, they get part of you. So when they die, they take that part of your soul with them. And that's why it feels like it leaves such a gaping hole. Um, and that's why, sometimes people will try to mistakenly fill that with another person, other activities, or just distractions, because you feel that there's an emptiness there that because of the space that they've left behind. The thing is, nothing will ever fill that hole completely because our people were so unique. Each one of them can never be replaced. So, like that them shaped hole is always going to be there. And, even though with time and with healing, that hole will eventually become a scar, we'll always be reminded of the people that we've lost every time we see that scar or we feel that scar or something comes up that, like, touches that scar and like brings that sadness again. But that also means that they're never going to get left behind because, in fact, when we choose to hold on to the pain and the sadness and the suffering in some way, it's really like kind of keeping that wound very fresh and keeping, they're still alive within us. But then when we do hang on to the pain and the suffering and the sadness, what happens is we end up keeping them in that space too. And the longer that you stay in that suffering, eventually all of your memories with them, even the good ones, get kind of painted over by that sadness. And eventually it'll be very difficult to remember any of the joy or any of the good times that they brought to your life. Because like I said, they're still very much alive in your mind. So I don't know about you, but for me, like I believe that. So I would hate to trap what I have left of him in a place full of pain and sadness and suffering, right? So it doesn't always have to be there. It could also be, we could also grow and put them in a place of love. So as someone who has moved forward in my grief journey, I'm happy to report that I'm able to feel happiness again, but I'd like to say that it's not the basic version of happiness where, it's like naive, when before everything happened, when you're happy, you're just like, oh, I'm happy. I feel like the kind of happiness I have now is a premium version where it's richer because of what happened. I now know how to be more present, and in the moment more. And when you've known true despair, I think it makes you really try to be present because, when you try to think about them, you're like, I should have paid more attention. I should have been more present. So now we can't do anything about the past, but, in the future, like how we conduct ourselves now, we're able to kind of put ourselves in that mindset where you want to just be present for the good things that are happening, right? But don't get me wrong, sometimes the waves of grief hit me like it just happened, a minute ago, and everything comes crashing back. But what happens is, once you learn and you practice, eventually you'll get to a point where you're able to rely on the coping skills that you learn. And then you will know what to do with your feelings because you've had a lot of practice in just holding them, feeling them, and honoring them. So, just a quick story. The other day, like I said, it was Ira's birthday. So my favorite band in the world is Death Cab for Cutie. They had a concert here in New York. And the song What Sarah Said was the song that I walked down the aisle to when we got married. For those who aren't familiar, the lyrics go, love is, and then colon, watching someone die. So I think it was a little morbid when we chose it, but I think I liked the message then. Um, I understood it a little bit, but when I chose when I chose that song, but little did I know that I'd eventually understand it completely, but only through experiencing it. When we love someone, we don't get to pick and choose which parts we love. Sure, we get to pick and choose which parts we like and don't like, but when we love someone, we love all of them. I know it's hard to wrap your head around it right now, but this also means eventually learning how to love their leaving. Because the pain that you're feeling right now, the reason why it's so intense is because there is a direct correlation of how much you love them to how much you grieve. Like if you didn't care about this person that passed, you're not going to be this sad, right? So the fact that you are in this grief and this is so painful, it's just a testament of how much love there still is, right? The pain is still the pain is still very painful. So during that concert, they played that song. Um, and of course I cried, but you know what? It was just so cathartic to just stand there and cry my heart out. I wanted to feel and honor the grief and the pain. And by allowing myself to fully feel that, I've learned to live with it. It takes practice. You're not always going to get it right, but you just keep trying. And now I've come to a point where I'm able to trust myself, and I've developed a much healthier relationship with grief, so that I know for a fact that no matter how bad it gets, no matter how sad I get, is that I'm going to be okay. And sometimes that's all you need. Okay, so um, if you would like, tell me in the chat, what do you think could be different for you if you're able to learn how to develop a healthier relationship with grief. If it's something you've never thought of before, that's also fine. But if it is something that you've thought of, I'm curious to know what you're thinking. Okay, I'll check back later. So for rediscovery, so like I said, today will be about rediscovering and identifying the parts of yourself that you want to bring forward in this next chapter. And if you want to, how you will honor their memory and legacy by developing like a healthier relationship with grief. So let's start with the question I want you to think about is, who am I becoming now? Because loss, no matter how it happens to you, it blows up your life. I'm sure you all know this. It blows up your life and everything as you know it. We specifically say becoming because you're gonna have to relearn who you are. You're gonna have to rediscover yourself, what you like, kind of humor you have, everything. Because who you were before, it was so shaped by this person that you lost that now that they're not here anymore, like our analogy yesterday, it's kind of like losing a limb. You lose a limb suddenly. Now, you can't just pretend that nothing happened. You have to now adapt to this new world where you are one leg less, right? So when you enroll in my program, we go really deep and rebuild that from the ground up so you have a solid foundation for that next chapter of your life. But even though our personalities or preferences may change after loss, underneath all that pain is still the fighter in you. And, even as you grow and shift, that person is still there. You're still the same person that they loved, no matter how they knew or didn't know how to show it. All the great, amazing, and powerful parts of you are still there. It's just been, I understand it's just hard to see it past anything when you've been so focused on just surviving your grief. But I promise you that part is still there. And when you eventually learn how to carry your grief in a healthy way, you won't be just surviving. You can even thrive if you want. Those wonderful parts of you will be able to come into the light once we're able to develop that healthier relationship with grief. And I've seen fellow widows do amazing things. So who's to say you can't be one of them, right? Who's to say loss can't transform you into something so powerful and so world-changing? I saw a post the other day from Megan Devine. She's the one who wrote It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And then she said something about, there is not a reason for everything and not all loss has to be meaningful. And, I agree with her somewhat because I don't believe that there was a reason why Ira did what he did. It'll never make sense to me. But ultimately, his actions were out of my control. But what is in my control, though, is that I choose to make what happened meaningful. And now, because of what happened, I've now made it my life's mission to help people like you, people like me who are grieving and who've also lost people. I've made it my life's mission to help, people like us write the story of the rest of their lives. So although you had no choice when you were put in this situation, you have a choice in how you bring them forward with you. That's one choice at least that you get to make in this thing that makes you feel so powerless. So isn't it so nice to hear that you actually have finally some sort of control over the situation? So like do a thumbs up if you agree. Because like for some widows or like some widowers that I've talked to, they have never realized this before. Good. Okay, good. So yesterday we established that grief is not linear, right? So it's not something we can solve, but rather it's a process. So always remember that your experience and your relationship with them is very personal. It's deeply personal. So there is no right or wrong way to feel or grieve. Okay. After loss, it's natural to ask, who am I now? When you've only known one way to be, you kind of have to start from scratch, right? And relearn how to be in this new world. So once you start observing yourself, you may notice shifts. So, interests fading, new ones emerging. Like I got super into birding for some reason, and I love birds now, and I can tell them just by their bird songs. Some people's full personality shifts. Like I've spoken to someone who said she used to be happy-go-lucky and now she's more serious. I, on the other hand, went the other way because I was very like happy-go-lucky. So he used to be the less serious one, and now in my relationship, I'm the less serious one. Um, of course, because he had a lot of influence in my personality and like he helped shape who I am today. So I feel like the good influences that he had on me are now magnified after healing. So, I find myself that I'm sillier, I'm less serious, still love movies like he did, but now I also try to bring people together like this workshop because it's something that he used to do is he was really good at bringing people together without even having to think about it. So grief, when we honor it, it can be an invitation to really evaluate what you choose to value and bring forward with you. But on the other hand, it's also a chance to let go of the things that don't serve you anymore as you go into this new chapter. So, like for me, I used to get so frustrated or so angry by little things, and now I'm like super chill because I'm like, life's too short to be angry all the time. So that's something I wanted to let go, so I did. But yeah, so this may not be relatable to everyone since not everyone in this call is a widow or widower. But one thing that people always ask me again is about opening up your heart again to love. It's something that a lot of widows and widowers think about, or people who've lost children. And listen, if you're still very fresh out, don't need to worry about that right now. Okay? Don't need to worry about this. But if you are feeling ready, can I just say how proud I am of your bravery? Because to love somebody so fully and get your heart so absolutely broken, and yet be okay to opening up your heart again to love and, potentially loss, because we established grief and love go hand in hand. That for me shows pure courage, right? You're risking this again. And you're like, I went through hell, but I'm willing to do that again because I want the love. There is still a lot of love in you, right? We're never going to be able to replace them. But guess what? Our hearts are capable of growing and expanding to make space for new love. So, you have your bestest friends and your closest families, right? What happens when you get a new member of your family? Do you just say, so, nope, sorry, your roster's full. Too bad. Good luck again next time. No, your heart expands and your heart makes space for love, for more love, for new love. Okay? All right. So for finding glimmers of hope. So I want to pause for a second and just, for a bit of reflection. So think back, who were you before your loss? Like what brought you joy? What made you feel alive? What were the things that you were afraid of? And then today, what lights you up, even just a little? It could be a funny meme, a well-deserved treat or dessert, or you can even be finding a spot on your first try. You know, Sometimes it's hard to see the light when our eyes are so clouded by grief, but I promise you those things are still there. So I invite you after this call, just take a moment and write down if there are any qualities of the people you've lost that you want to carry with you or personify. And think of a few activities or passions that have brought you joy in the past or something you'd like to try. Um, or something that you maybe could do again in the future. So it doesn't mean that you have to get back into it immediately, but sometimes it's also good to focus on, the future and things that you want to eventually end up doing, right? So Adrian says loving and accepting the bad ending, what could have been different? Yes, yes, definitely. So yeah, so if you can write in the chat if you've already thought of one thing that you would like to bring forward with you, I'd like to know. Okay. As we were waiting for people to put in any of their ideas. So, okay, this next part, I want to just disclaimer, this part is not required, okay? So it's perfectly okay if you choose not to do this. Like I said, no two people's grief are the same. So what might help someone may not necessarily heal another, okay? So I invite you to listen to this next part with that in mind because I do not want to put any pressure on you, okay? So Russ says, I want to be more honest and more vulnerable with myself and others. Yes, that's something that happened to me too, is that now, like, I'm not rude about it, but like I have less of a filter when people ask me, how are you doing? I'm like, if I'm terrible that day, I'm like, oh, I'm terrible. I'm like, today just sucks. Like, it's like there's no, I feel like these things bring people together more. Sometimes there are people who don't know how to accept that or to react to it, but I'm like, then that's your problem. Learn how to deal with feelings. Everyone will eventually have to, right? So honoring their memory and legacy. So on this earth, you are now the sole keeper of your unique story with them, your unique love and your shared story. But honoring their memory and their legacy isn't just about remembering them. It can also be about infusing their presence in your everyday life. So simple rituals can help, lighting a candle every time you miss them, or saying a little prayer to or for them whenever you miss them. Gathering with others like friends or fellow grievers to share memories. You can even make up your own ritual, right? I encourage you to find new expressions of love because, like I said, there's still so much love in you. And the reason why we're finding it so difficult to move forward is because we don't know what to do with it. So I encourage you to start to find these new ways of expressing that love. Living the values and the lessons that they gave you is a beautiful expression of your love, right? It shows up in your words, in your actions, and how you show up. So, um, you know, if you want to type in the chat how, if you've thought of if you already been doing one ritual that helps in your grieving, please share because sometimes it also helps other people get ideas of what they can do. So like again, for me, I buy flowers. I have this little altar for him. So I buy flowers, I light a candle whenever I miss him. Mick says he wants to be more real to people, not what they want you to be. Yes, yes. I think we also need to give our loved ones a chance to show up for us, right? Because the thing is, sometimes we want to hide because we don't want them to feel bad or we feel like we're a burden. But this is one of those times that you actually can lean on the people that you love. Not everyone's going to show up the way you want to. I'm going to say that right now. But the people that do, they will amaze you. Let them amaze you. Okay. So, building a healthier relationship with grief. I wanted to share with you a couple of. Oh, Daphne says she likes to spend time outside, walking, stretching, taking deep breaths. Yes, this is, I think, based on science that walking in nature like really helps us, like connecting with nature, even just, I don't like the term, but like going out and touching grass. Like, just being out in nature, it really does help. I think that's also why I got really into birding. Um, so a couple of quotes from TV. Like I said, we were always TV and movie people, so I wanted to share with you a couple of quotes from that I love. So from a TV show, a Marvel TV show called WandaVision. Uh, so just the backstory for those who don't really follow is this character, so Vision, had been, killed in one of the other the movies. And then the whole show is about Wanda really dealing with her grief. And she doesn't know how to, so she does it in these ways that are not necessarily helping her healing. So when, she is able to talk to him, they start saying like, will this ever end? Will this ever get better? And, he says, what is grief if not love persevering, right? It's just love in a different coat, love in a different outfit. That's what grief is. And another one from Interstellar. Um, so if you haven't seen the movie, like Anne Hathaway's character hasn't seen the person that she loves in 10 years, but she is going across the universe to go hopefully meet that person. So she says, even though you don't know if that person's still out there, love is the one thing that we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space and even, phases of being, right? So just because they're not here on this earth anymore does not mean that their energy is still not out there. Science says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So like I don't believe that when you die that it just goes nowhere. Um, So we struggle with all this love that we have because, most of our lives, we've been taught to love possessively, that love is only possible when it's reciprocated, right? But unconditional love means no conditions, right? So it doesn't mean that the person has to be alive in order for us to love them. Doesn't mean they have to be around, right? They can be around in other ways. But unconditional love means loving them no matter what. So what if instead of pushing grief away, what if we welcomed it as companion, right? It hurts right now, yes, 100%. But like I said, it's also a proof of love. I think it's really important to be kind to yourself and to give yourself grace as you're dealing with this really, really terrible thing. So, self-compassion is key. So I want you to remember, allow yourself all the feelings without judgment. Like we covered yesterday, you can feel a variety of feelings. Not all of them are going to be socially acceptable. So when you start feeling things like that, reach out to people like me, fellow grievers. 100%, I promise you, they will understand. Okay? You're allowed to feel happy. You're allowed to be sad, angry, grateful, resentful, relieved. All of those feelings are valid and totally common. But in the chaos of it all, please try to notice those moments of joy, calm, or light. One thing that I also learned from grief is that two things can be true at the same time. I can be grateful that I'm alive, that I'm here with you guys, and I'm happy and I'm able to feel joy. But at the same time, I'm always going to be a little sad, because he's not here anymore. So both grief and gratitude can coexist. So whenever, I have something really great going on in my life, there's always that tinge of like, oh, I wish he was here to hear about this, right? So that's when, I light the candle and talk to him a little bit and say, look at all the good work that I'm doing. Like I'm trying to do something out of this really, really sucky thing. Okay. So here are just some ways that you can start thinking about how to integrate grief into your life. So, like I mentioned before, you can think about rituals, honoring your emotions when they come up. So, sometimes this is not always easy because, sometimes you're at work or you're in a place where you don't feel like you can openly grieve. Something that you can do is just acknowledge that grief within yourself and say, okay, I'm really feeling you right now. I need to do this first, but when I get home today, I'm gonna give you space. I'm gonna give myself space to feel you fully. Okay. Again, not always possible. So sometimes I like, even at work, sometimes I run to the bathroom and cry. It happens. But the more that you practice, the easier it'll be to feel it fully and then go on with your day. It doesn't before when it used to happen to me, I'd feel it fully and then the rest of my day is gone because I'm just in that space the whole day, right? Um, but yeah, like I want to say that, eventually it is possible to learn to handle it that way. And also, find creative outlets like some people write, some people do art, photography. You can also grow around grief. So, the grief is kind of, if you've ever seen, I'll send it to you guys later, but if you've ever seen that graphic of grief being a big ball in a box where, in the beginning, that box is very small, so you're always going to be hitting that grief throughout your day. But as you heal and as you grow, that grief stays the same size, but that box can get bigger. So it doesn't always have to hit the grief throughout your day, right? And always like know when it's time for an upgrade. What I mean by this is if you've been trying to DIY your grief, if you've been just trying to do it yourself, it's important to be self-aware and know when you've reached a point where you can't do it yourself anymore. And that's when you kind of, bring in professionals, bring in other grievers who have walked this path, right? So I know it is, what time is it? 7:37. So we have I want to start opening up the Q&A a little early if you guys don't mind. So Q&A is open. You can start typing down your questions. Um, but before we shift into the Q&A, I just want to pause and honor the steps that you've taken last night and tonight because you showed up. right? You sat with your relationship to grief and maybe for the first time, just let in a little spark of hope. So remember that healing is not a straight line and every bit of self-compassion matters. Okay, so as you're typing your questions for the Q&A, I just want to share that I'm so excited to tell you guys that I'm going to be launching my next chapter program in mid-September. There are only going to be 5 slots available for this season. And if you've been feeling really activated by everything we talk about so far, yesterday and today, then it means that you're ready for this. And what you get, it's an 8-week intense one-on-one program. So it's just you and me, where we really go deep into your grief and start the healing. I dig deep into the methods that help tremendously with acceptance, processing the pain, adjusting to their absence, and finding ways to honor your grief while, you write the story of the rest of your life. So those 4 tasks of mourning that we mentioned yesterday, like we dive into that. Um, I'll teach you how to transform your grief into fuel as you work towards, your vision of your future. So I'll teach you how to embrace your power to be the architect of your life and the power to design a life that you're excited about again. There will only be 5 spots available because I'm doing one-on-one with 5 of you for 8 weeks. So, but yeah. So are there any questions so far? You can also take yourself off mute if you're comfortable. Also happy to answer questions that way. Not yet. And as we're maybe thinking, oh yes, shoot, I don't want to forget. As a thank you for attending this workshop, I'm also offering an exclusive hard reset bundle that's only for everyone who's going to be, who's watching this and who's going to be watching it on the replay. So the hard reset bundle, so this is not going to be advertised on any of my socials. This is really just in this video. It is for this weekend only. And what it comes with is everything that I just mentioned for the next chapter program. But if you're able to secure your spot, if you're feeling really activated by this and you want to secure your spot this weekend, not only will you be receiving my exclusive grief toolbox, so I've curated like this box with some of my favorite grief tools, but you will also receive a free bonus of a 1 hour visioning session in January. So this program starts in September, it's 8 weeks, but I will also include a free 1 hour visioning session in January where we're going to review what you've done with your work and then we'll prepare you for 2026, which can be your most magical and powerful year yet. Because so like, imagine a year from now telling your best friend that you're in your most magical year yet, right? Feels impossible, but I promise it's possible. But listen, if you're on the fence and you need to sit with it, totally okay. Like I said, grief has no timeline. However, if you're feeling stirred by this work and are excited about it, please email me as soon as you can. Email me, I'm in. And as soon as you confirm your spot, we'll secure your schedule for those 8 weeks. So I'm not seeing any questions so far. Oh, thank you, Jenna. Yes, the word fuel. Yes, there are flickers of hope. So see, like I was telling people yesterday, the fact that you're here in this workshop, that means you're not giving up. That means that you know that there is something there that is worth cultivating, that is worth, like um kindling that fire, right? Eventually it will start burning and you will start to feel that purpose and that fulfillment. And it will fuel you and it will give you that energy that you have been lacking for a while now. Okay. So, if there, I guess we're gonna end a little bit early because I'm not really seeing a lot of questions, but just want to say that, you guys have been so amazing. Thank you so much for being so actively participating in the questions and the reactions. I really appreciate it. If you want to grab one of those slots, please reach out to me because I'm going to be sending this replay out to everyone who registered. So it's going to be first come, first serve. But thank you so much for spending time with me. And as we end, please remember that, you're not who you were, and that's not a flaw. You are becoming. Okay. You may always carry your loved one and with you as you shape, your life into what's next. Thank you so much for your courage in showing up vulnerably. Grief work is brave work. And, action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. Okay. I'm so proud of you for being here and keeping on going. I love you guys. If there are any questions that come up after the call, email me, message me on Instagram. I'm very, very responsive. Some of you guys know that. Yeah, but I wish you better days and more peace ahead. Thank you so much.